You're listening to Media Savvy Moms with Melody and Marilyn, a podcast by Parents Aware, your go-to for information on how to talk to kids and teens about pornography and healthy sexuality.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Media Savvy Moms. Today we're going to be talking about one of those foundational topics that we come back to over and over again, and it's really why we do this podcast. My child has seen porn. Now, what do I do? That's such a common question. And it's part of the challenge of raising kids in this media-saturated world that we live in. The fact is that kids will see pornography. And then we have to deal with that, right?
Right. We have parents come to us with this issue all the time. My child has seen pornography. What do I do next? It seems like a really basic question, but it's not something that we can answer in one day and we're one and done and boom, it's fixed. But in that initial moment, there's a million things that go through our mind as parents, right? I remember specifically a mother coming to us and talking to us, and she said, I don't get it. I don't understand how this could have happened because I've spent all this time having open conversations with my kids, just like you talk about on the show. I read my kids, read aloud books about pornography, and I've prepared them and I've talked to them. It's not a taboo subject in our home. And still, it's happened, right? And it wasn't for her a one-time accidental exposure thing. It was something that kept coming up, and they'd have good conversations, no shaming, and then it happened again and again. And so she had hit this point where she just felt like, and these are the two lies that we believe as parents. Number one, I've failed. I did everything that I thought was right, and I've failed. I've failed as a parent. And number two, I'm alone. It must be just me. I'm the one, I'm struggling, I'm broken, and because I did all the resources and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And also she said when she went looking, all the resources she found when she went looking for my child in pornography were so heavy on prevention and protecting and helping the kids not to get to that point. And if they saw it, get away, that when they got to that point and crossed that threshold of, then they saw it and kept going back. There were no resources for her as a parent. So that's what we want to do here today and start. And so much of our show revolves around helping parents and families after that happens. What do we do next, right?
Definitely want to provide you with that kind of information. Today we're going to discuss some positive aspects, and that's that you have discovered your child or teen's exposure, and now you can help them. The second thing we're going to talk about is that you are actively searching for answers, and that means a lot. Thirdly, we're going to talk about that your kid is a great kid, and they can still learn to reject pornography, even if they are currently consuming it. And finally, you and your child are on the road to recovery together.
We could do this. We got this. Okay, so hang on. We're gonna ride the roller coaster with you for a little minute. So first, as Marilyn said, we're gonna talk about discovering the problem. This is an emotional space, right? And there are these lies that come into our head. I've failed. I'm alone. I'm the only one, and there are no resources to help me. So we're gonna work through that.
Yeah, I've had a few parents come and talk to me about this issue, and there's kids all along the spectrum. I've had mom who's talked to me about her 9-year-old son who's looking at sexy pictures of women, and she's concerned because she's taught him that that's not right, and yet he's like, but they're beautiful. And then I've had a mom who's had a girl exposed to very, very graphic content and gone back and looked at it. And then there's teenagers who have been engrossed in a habit for several years. And so we're talking about a wide variety of experiences, but I think they all come back to the same thing. the first is that no matter where they're at, whether it's you've caught it within a week or a couple of years or even several years, that you still have come to this understanding early, that you still know what's going on while they're young and while they're at home and while you can help your kids. And that's huge. And it doesn't feel like you found out early. It feels like you found out late, but you've actually found out really early and you can go places with that.
Right. And it doesn't feel like a good thing either. It feels awful, but it is a good thing. It's so much better to know, to be able to move on and to fix it than to not know. So I know it sounds crazy, but smile, be happy that you know, because it's great to have this come out in the open. Pornography habits thrive in darkness, right? So we want to shine a light on it.
And the first thing that you can tell your child is that thank you for, well, maybe they haven't come to you. First thing to do when you've discovered this is to tell your child that you love them and that they are normal and that it's natural to be curious, because that's really the number one reason that kids go looking at pornography to begin with. We talked with Paul Laverne, and he is a sex addiction therapist, and we talked with John Fort, who from Be Broken Ministries, and they both talked about that as children look at pornography to begin with because they're curious. Now, over time, just the way the brain works, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, is that it starts to fill an emotional need. So it's good to know why your kids are looking. It's not because they're rotten kids.
Right. And we need to be really careful about the words we use. Always with children, we need to be careful about labels, right? Because they can feel permanent. They can make them feel like they're stuck that way. Next week, we're talking with Garrett Johnson from Fight the New Drug, and he talked to us about that. He made us stop in our tracks and think about the word addiction, didn't he?
Yep.
Because the word addiction and the word addict, when you put it on a person, can really feel shameful. And we talk a lot about shame and how that makes us feel like I am a mistake instead of I made a mistake. And it can make a child feel like there's no way that they can change. And so we talk about how children, they're so malleable and they have so much potential to grow and change and to get through this. And so we need to see that potential in them and not see them as broken, because as parents, when we see something broken, we want to fix it. Right, Marilyn?
We want to fix it right away. So just to recap, we've discovered the problem early and we can help our kids overcome it. That's really important to focus on.
Just a quick tip. When we talk to Paul Laverne, who is a sex addiction therapist, if you're wondering whether your child just has been accidentally exposed or if they have a habit or if they really are addicted, he gives some great tips in his show about how to tell the difference between those that in that spectrum. So moving on, after we've discovered the problem, we're in that space, right? And we're going to move in a positive direction. Now we're going to start looking for answers, and we are going to find them.
But often our first reaction is, oh my gosh, like what's going on? I can't believe this has happened. Moms tend to be a little more guilty of that than dads. That's been my experience in talking to parents, that dads are usually, okay, we can handle this. And moms who just, can't imagine their beautiful little children getting involved in such horrible stuff really can freak out. They can feel shock and horror, anger. And sometimes we can, as moms, I shouldn't say they, I'm a mom, I know what this feels like. We can get very emotional and feel betrayed even by our kids. That's the first stage. And now it's time to realize, well, hey, I'm here. I'm a resource for my kids and I'm going to help them. And that is amazing. if you are here and you are listening. So give yourself a wonderful pat on the back, because unfortunately, there is a whole group of people in our society who don't see anything wrong with this. And they're like, it's no big deal. My kid will go through this phase. I'm not going to worry about it. And
Or they don't think there's anything wrong with pornography to begin with, right? We got a comment on our YouTube channel this morning from somebody calling us calling us
we're
out.
not media savvy moms, we're media savvy grandmas.
Yeah. Hey, grandma, there's nothing taboo about porn.
By the way,
And
no offense to grandmas, because you guys are awesome.
yeah, grandmas rock. We're like, well, if you want to start out
Thank you
your
for the
insult with a compliment. Yeah, this lady commented and said that there's nothing wrong with pornography, and that kids may be addicted to their phones, so we should limit their time, but we shouldn't be limiting what they're watching. And we're thinking, just a reminder, like, you who are listening to our show, thank you, because that's half the battle, just caring about your kids enough to do something about it. So you're here. And I do have to say, Marilyn, I want to go back about this emotional reaction. We don't want to minimize that. It is so legitimate. And when we had Vana on, who is a coach,
True.
she
Yes.
reminded us it's okay to be in that moment and to acknowledge your emotions, that they are real, and to work with that and
Yeah.
to
She
live
said,
with it.
don't make the situation worse by beating yourself up by feeling bad about it. Like, just acknowledge it, right?
Right. We're allowed to be human. And so own it. You're a mom. It's okay to be upset and to be sad and afraid and to feel betrayed, because you're a mom. So kudos to you for having emotions in the right direction and feeling that way, instead of feeling flippant and feeling like this doesn't matter, because that is taking your temperature as a good mom, and you get good points for being a good mom for feeling that way.
Now, I was going to say, we can have our emotions and we can express them and we can be all over the place with them, but they can create somewhat of a barrier between us and our kids if we aren't willing to admit to what we've done wrong. Not that our emotions are wrong, but maybe how we express those emotions outwardly towards our kids. So if we can go back and say, okay, I've thought about it, I've taken it down a notch, I love you, and I love you no matter what. Now let's talk about this again.
Right. And we talk about that in I Panicked when my child confided in me about porn, right? That we're allowed to backpedal, we're allowed do-overs because we're human. So take a minute. We're in this moment. We're looking for what we're going to do next. We need to remember to take care of ourselves too, to put on our oxygen mask, to take care of ourselves emotionally too, before we move on and take care of everybody around us, which we know we're moms. We tend to want to take care of everybody else except ourselves. And then when we're looking for these answers, isn't it kind of like drinking from a fire hose when we're looking for information about anything in our modern society? We Google something and we have 500 trillion answers. We need to be sure that we're going to the right sources for information. We can help you steer toward resources in this after exposure space and help you save a lot of time going through all of these articles and going, oh, I already did that, and I failed.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention just before we close for the break is that it's okay to admit that you don't have all the answers right now, either for yourself or your child, but that you are going to find those answers, and over time they will come to you. As you look and as you stick with us, you're going to feel much more confident about this as you go along.
Absolutely. So great talks so far. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about your great, amazing kid and how they can learn how to reject pornography.
When parents share with me their concern over a child struggling with pornography, I always recommend they check out Fortify. Fortify is an amazing recovery tool that can help your teen learn to develop their own plan towards success. It's easy to sign up, it's designed to engage, and it's free for teens. Best of all, Fortify is science-based and has a proven track record of helping thousands of individuals find happiness by regaining their freedom from pornography. Visit joinfortify.com/Media Savvy Moms to learn more.
And we're back, and we are talking about that big question. My child has seen pornography. Now, what do I do next? And in the first section, we talked about how actually making the discovery is not necessarily a bad thing. It's good because it jumpstarts us on this road to recovery. And we are going to talk about that road in this second segment. So first of all, your child is a good child. We want to remind you, your child is awesome.
Yeah, so they're great kids, and I want to help answer this question. So if I've got such a great kid, why are they looking at such crummy stuff? Like, how does that even happen? And we got to sort that out.
Yes, we do.
We've had guests on the show, and they've talked to us about the biology that's involved with this and the development of the brain and the age of the child, and all of these things intersect and kind of plus the availability. Let's not forget about the constant availability of these images. All of this intersects to create this perfect storm. So let's break those down a little bit. Talk to us about biology, Melody.
Yes, brain science is a great place to go with your kids because you can help them understand this is a brain problem. If they, children, when they see pornography, can get really confused because they can know in their mind, this is bad. Then why does it feel good? They can get confused about those signals that they get in their body.
And that's just hardwired into the brain. Like, we have a natural instinct to be curious about sex. And that's not different among any human being. It might be stronger in some than others, but it's hardwired into all of us.
Right, absolutely. And so where the brain science comes in is where that thinking brain and that feeling brain get confused, because the feeling brain, wow, I see this stuff and it's like a magnet, it's drawing me towards it. And then my thinking brain needs to come through and tell me, hey, no, run away, it's like poison. Right? So we got to get our kids to understand that this is like a drug. This can draw us in. This can be harmful. But yeah, it is a natural biological reaction.
It really is. And when our kids are children and teens, there's a whole lot going on in that brain. It's in a really, it's in a construction phase. And so we can't expect that they're going to be able to make the same decisions that we would make if we saw it as adults. In fact, the whole executive functioning of that brain isn't really prepared to put on the brakes the way we can tell our brain to put on the brakes. And so that's just a little history, or not history, a little background of why kids can do some really inappropriate things online. And we're like, what the heck? You guys are normal kids. When I see you offline, what's going on online? How is this even matching up?
Well, and there's a lot of pressure from peers, and you know what? If you want to understand, and if you want to put your anger and channel your anger towards society, do that. Get mad at the world. We get mad at the world. How can they do this to our kids? It's not fair. The porn industry is coming after our kids. Between that context of they're coming after them and the biology of their being drawn to it, our kids really are fighting a battle, and we need to be alongside with them.
Okay, so let's spin it now, and we'll come back to the positive. Because I don't want to leave our listeners there. So let's talk about, is it next week that we have Garrett coming on?
We do. Yep.
Okay, so he reminds us that as much as we want to fix this problem like yesterday,
Hmm.
that our child is really not broken. So we have to think of it as they've they've discovered this content online and they're consuming it, and that can be moving them from a normal healthy state to an unhealthy state, but it isn't like boom, all of a sudden they're sick and unrecoverable. They're just on moving towards that direction, and it's a process, and our job is to what? Is to redirect them.
Right. And he pointed out it may have taken a long time for them to get from that healthy state to an unhealthy state. And it's going to take a long time for them to get unhealthy back to healthy, and to bear with them and to hang on for the ride. Right. And we talk a lot about be their coach, not the police. Work on this shoulder to shoulder, not the drill sergeant up above them. Right. We want to be a team.
Yeah, and that leads right into our fourth point, which is we're going to be on this road to recovery, this journey of healing or moving away from pornography together. And it can feel big and unsurmountable.
I had a story to share about this big momentous jobs. My husband was a trim carpenter for 20 years, and they used to walk up to a huge mansion with just, it felt like hundreds of rooms. And his son would be along for the job, and he'd say, "Oh, Dad, we're never going to finish this house. It's huge." And he always used to say, "You know how we're going to do it? We're going to open the door and we're going to start with one room and one room at a time." And they'd always walk out and he'd go, "Oh, wow, it's done." You know, that's
That's awesome.
that's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to do it, guys. We got this. We're going to take it one day, 1 hour if we need to at a time, and be patient. And then, we will look back and go, "Whew, we did it."
Yeah. It's really important to remember that moving away from pornography, when a child's consuming pornography, when a teen is consuming pornography, it really is going to be on their timeline. I'm going to go back to a child. So, a child, usually, a young child, I think you can talk to them and they're going to feel that comfort and likely move away. What as a child develops into a teen, there's more and more compelling reasons for them to return to pornography, or a child who's left it for a time as they reach adolescence might return to it. And so this is a long journey. It's not going to happen immediately that they're going to be able to let go of it. Not always. Maybe some children, some teens are, but be prepared for there to be a
A
lot of
long haul.
trim to take care of, a lot of rooms to
Right.
go through.
Well, in addiction recovery circles where I've worked for a long time, they talk about the bicycle that or the car. When you get a flat tire, you don't ditch the whole thing. You don't ditch the whole car. You fix the flat tire and you move on,
Mhm.
right? You're in for the long haul, and you don't look at your child and say, "Oh, you're a lost cause." You repair and you go. You keep going,
Yeah.
and we need to remember too to not always wonder, well, what's wrong with you, and get to the root and ask ourselves why, and focus on the big picture, right?
And why that they want to recover. So if we're telling them, if we're telling our kids this is not healthy, this is not good, and we're trying to control the situation by how much they have access to the internet or how much they have access to their devices, when and where, they could still be finding back doors and ways through into bad habits. But if we can get them to focus on why they want to let go of those bad habits, then they're going to be able to have more success with that. And I like to go back to think about the people and the purpose and the passion. So, what kind of relationships do you want now and in the future? So, if you want to build healthy relationships, is pornography helping you build those healthy relationships? What do you want to accomplish in life? If pornography is distracting you from achieving good grades in school, or going
Mm.
out with your friends, or focusing on all the talents and exciting things that you want to do, if it's consuming your life, how is that helping you? Like, that's a good reason to let go of it. And then finally, um, your 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 what brings you real joy right now. I guess I kind of mashed those two together. So where do you want to go in the future is kind of your purpose, and your passions are like, what brings you joy right now? What do you want to be doing that it's taking you away from?
So we got to keep the eye on the prize, right? We got to give them that prize to aim
Yeah.
for, because you got to have momentum towards something, not always, not necessarily momentum away from pornography, because that's not enough of a motivator. We got to give them something to aim for, a healthy life, healthy.
So there's an African proverb. It goes something like this: if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. So trying to force change is really you as a parent wanting to go alone. Like, this is what we're going to do, kid, and you're going to come along with me. And that's only going to end up frustrating everyone. So you're charging along, but you're really not getting anywhere. And if you want to go far, you'll start to work as a team and strengthen. And as you do this, your relationship will grow and strengthen in ways that you could not even imagine.
My dad is a business professor, and he talks about a concept called synergy. 1+1 = 3,
Mhm.
that we could never accomplish together, or we could never accomplish alone the same that we could accomplish together as a team.
So
There's an energy
true.
generated there that we just really can't explain. And it's definitely true on this road to recovery from pornography.
Yeah, your child does not going to do well trying to do this on their own, and you're not going to do well trying to do it for your child. It needs to be done together.
Absolutely. So, just to recap what we talked about today, when my child has seen porn, what do I do next? And we talked about after we'd made the discovery, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We've discovered it, and now we can help them. And then we talked about actively searching for answers, and how we have such a great kid and we need to see their potential to reject pornography and to work with them. And at last, working all together as a team.
Hmm.
So, Marilyn, do you have a challenge for us today?
So this week for our listeners, we are challenging you to download our free guide to helping you talk to your kids about pornography. So we know that not everybody who is listening to this episode today will have had a child who has been consuming pornography, or know that their child is consuming pornography. So wherever you are, it doesn't matter if it's preventative or if it's repairing, we still want you talking about pornography with your kids and building safe places to bring up these topics. So our free PDF is called 10 Surprisingly Natural Ways to Talk to Your Kids About Pornography. So if you have not downloaded that yet, please do that today. And if you have not shared it with a friend, we also encourage you to do that.
So, just a reminder, our show notes are at parentsaware.info. Go to the tab podcast, and you will find our free download 10 Surprisingly Natural Ways to Talk to Your Kids About Pornography, and start that talk.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Media Savvy Moms podcast. For detailed show notes and links to any of the resources mentioned today, visit parentsaware.info. To connect with us on social media, find us on Instagram at Media Savvy Moms and on Facebook and Twitter at Parents Aware. We would love to get your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast. Until next week, let's keep talking.